little while since I've driven this thing. There's a reason why. My inspection's been expired for a little while because, well, my car makes so much torque that it does something fun here. Yep. So much torque that it twists the frame and breaks windshields. That's always a good time. So I've needed to get that fixed, and today's its day. So I'm gonna get this thing up to the shop. But anyway, that's where the Hyundai's been. I've had other priorities, as you've been seeing. This one's getting back in action here for the winter. Good times. Well, that problem's been taken care of. It's been a little while now. You see there's some wood pulp on my hood. There's a reason for that. I'll explain it in a minute. But I got my windshield replaced, so the Hyundai can finally pass inspection, which is done in flying colors. And I made a little bit of an addition here. Let's get in here first. There you have it. So, yeah, I've done about 50 stereo installs in my lifetime, and maybe less than half of them were professional looking. In this particular car, I don't need to be careful. There's more wood in this car now than a 7 Series BMW, and I'm not kidding. The power stuff's all mounted to wood. The stereo is mounted to just a chunk of 1/2 inch plywood. Good times. And then there's that gigantic heavy MDF box. Yeah, I've used the stereo before on the GSX. It was intended to be something small that I could remove on race day very easily. In this car, I don't really care too much about taking it in and out because this is more of a have fun daily commuter. It sounds really good. But anyway, it's about 700 watts. I know that's some old PPI hardware. I'm a big fan of that old stuff. And let's see here. Hey, it's the Hyundai. I installed an Alpine deck. You see, I got the Bluetooth mic up here, so when I get a phone call, it automatically just picks up. And yeah, so it interfaces with my phone very easily, and it picks up right where I left off. Makes the tree dance a little bit. I can appreciate that. Now that I got tunes and power and a windshield and an inspection sticker, let's go get a battery. I got a stuck lifter. Stuck or collapsed. There's a noise. Is that lifter tap? I can't tell. That rattly sound. Yay, time to drain the oil. Is it not a 17? Really? They're always a 17. I need different reds. So we'll go with the 18. See anything looking strange so far? Look at this. Well, once is all it takes. Give me a magnet. Nothing. Well, interesting chapter for the Hyundai. System sounds great though.
Apparently, I can't get a break. There's a new piece of equipment on my channel. For Christmas, the same awesome mom that bought me a cordless impact wrench bought me a Sony HDR-AS30V Action Cam, and nearly every accessory made for it. That's what I'll be using for the remainder of this video. It enables me to bring you events from my 6-foot 4-inch perspective instead of having to plan my shots around using a big, bulky 8-pound camera. I don't expect this camera to be able to replace the big camera in my production by any means, but it unfolds a new realm of camera angles that weren't previously possible with my other gear.
Let's see any chunks up here. Just a lot of carbon.
I needed a chance to test it, however, I didn't ask for this kind of a test. This is just what ended up happening, and it substantially changes the course of this video.
Ate some chunks. Question is, what is it from? It looks to me like it's the outer coatings of the main bearings, or a rod bearing. It's not the bronze, I'm totally destroyed part. Know what I'm saying?
Clearly you'll see that I'm on the early stages of the learning curve with it, and I'll need to make some adjustments to how I use it. I'm extremely tall, so just like the difficulty of shirts and pants never fitting me right, my angle is often a bit too high because the accessories don't consider tall people. I can't pivot it down, and I tower over my workbench. My normal fast motion edits don't work as well with this as they do with a stationary camera. The edits appear to create a little bit of camera shake here, and it's a little dizzying despite having image stabilization. The built-in microphone is extremely sensitive, even inside of this hard plastic waterproof case, and it tends to pick up and exaggerate my breathing. I can't even hear myself breathe, and it picks it up. I apologize for these shortcomings, and will make adjustments to how I use this camera in future videos, but there's no better way to learn what the shortcomings are and how they work, and then get feedback from you guys than to just put it to use and see how it does. Hopefully 2014 will bring me lots of opportunities to use the helmet mounts. It beats the heck out of doing this kind of work. At this stage of the game, my options are few. If you find chunks in your oil filter, don't even entertain the discussion of fixing this with the block in the car. You can't do the job properly without cleaning out the oil galleries, and the work that creates is dozens of times more punishing. Remove the engine. That's step 2. Pulling the axles and driveline components first gets the hardest part over with. Those are the big pieces. Everything else is just little nuts and bolts, wires, hoses, easy stuff. I'm going to take the drivetrain out in one piece, and to keep from making a mess, I use axle plugs. By using axle plugs, I don't even need to drain the transmission. Don't ask me where to get them, I don't know. Mine came with a race-built transmission, and I kept them because, hey, free axle plugs. They've definitely made my life easier over the years. Another good investment is a stubby pry bar, effortless means of removing axles without destroying axle seals. Another great thing to have are gear wrenches. Everything you'll encounter on a DSM, aside from wheel lugs, exhaust flange bolts, hose clamps, and throttle position sensor bolts, is going to be either a 10 or a 12 or a 14 millimeter. This car, however, did not utilize any of the original bolts it was built with. The end of the wiring harness is bolted to the alternator. Take any other wiring harnesses for the radiator fans, oil pressure sending units, alternator, and power steering pump loose while you're under there. Tag them if you don't know where they go already.
That's a good sign.
Time to drain the radiator. You saw this dude earlier. This is Chad. He's responsible for lots of great stuff you've seen on my channel. The Noid light, snap-on digital torque wrench, and the blue all-wheel drive Talon that Robert and I stripped in the junkyard. That was his. Just so you know. Later he even got me the transfer case that wasn't on the transmission when I pulled it. The gift that just keeps on giving. It's pretty obvious what we're doing here. It's time to remove the other big thing, the radiator. It's painful and potentially expensive if you screw up working around this part. So it just makes more sense to pull the hoses, wiring, and the 4 bolts that secure it and move it out of harm's way. That way you get to keep all your blood in, and you're slightly less likely to find yourself in need of replacing it. I kicked everybody out and got to work. When you're removing an engine from a car, after the axles are gone, you only have to worry about the 4 caveman elements: air, fuel, fire, and water. Remember that they come in pairs. Start with your battery and remove both electrical connections to stop fire. Remove your intake and exhaust. That takes care of air. Remove your coolant, send and return lines, and that takes care of your fluids. Separate the fuel system components from the engine. Now, aside from the 4 bolts that hold the engine in the car, all that's left is linkages, vacuum lines, electrical connectors, and your clutch hydraulics. The reason I said to separate your fuel system from the engine is that it has 2 ports, a send and a return, but you don't have to disconnect them if you can move your fuel rail out of the way. I treat several other systems this way. I deal with the clutch hydraulics like this. The power steering pump as well. Just like saving time with the axle plugs, it's neater and less work to leave them all intact and just unbolt them from the engine. Unless you need to rebuild those components, don't separate them. You can just tie them out of the way. You've seen me do this a half dozen times on this channel already. I've been known to pull an engine just to polish it. This car's a lot more challenging to me because I didn't build it. But past that, my goals are very different with it. It's a crude stock build using all stock parts, and I intend to keep it that way, so it would be far easier and less expensive than my other projects to fix. I'm also not interested in performing time-consuming cosmetic upgrades here or reinventing the wheel. This is just going to be a simple home-built R&R job. Everything I need to put it back together, aside from a 30 overhead gasket, is already sitting here on my shelves. At least I hope it is. I plan to have it tore down before the ball drops in 2014. That way all the destruction and carnage is left behind in 2013. 2014 is just going to be good news, guys. I promise you that. With all the other work that's been done to this car recently, it would be a shame not to fix it. I can't wait to see what's on the inside. So for now, I'll shut my pie hole, and aside from my on-screen notes and a little help from Rojo del Chocolate, I'll let you see this job from my perspective. Happy 2014, everybody!
my car.
Nobody touches my car.
Now you're gonna have to pay for my car.
Obviously, well, obviously, actually, we're talking